Oh, Hilton, stay. Your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton, stay. Oh, Hilton, stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
Every Who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton. But where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one Who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and low prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as Who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
Hello, I'm Diane Morgan. If you know who I am, you know who I am. If you don't, who cares? I'm here to explain Italian Time, a holiday phenomenon where Italians throw away their clocks and gather for eternity with San Pellegrino. I've been at this party so long that I've eaten 5 courses, hugged someone's grandma twice and been offered a job in the family restaurant. So this holiday season, make sure to bring enough San Pellegrino to last you through the meal, the after meal and the entire goodbye ritual. San Pellegrino, holiday on Italian Time.
This episode of How We're the Podcast is sponsored by LiveScoreBet, a principal partner of Sunderland FC. LiveScoreBet is the home of the total betting experience, combining live scores, real-time updates and stats with great odds and offers, all in one slick, easy-to-use betting app. For more information, visit livescorebet.com or download the LiveScoreBet app. And please remember, over 18s only, and please bet responsibly. For more information, go to gambleaware.org. Hello everyone and welcome to How Are the Podcast, sponsored by LiveScoreBet. It's Gav and you join us for our match day preview as Sunderland head to Anfield to take on Liverpool. The mighty Liverpool, the Premier League champions, are facing Sunderland for the first time since our promotion back to the top flight, and it's going to be an interesting game. If you listened to my chat yesterday with the guy from Anfield Rap, you will have heard all about how they're in a state of flux at the minute. Nobody quite knows what's going on with the Reds at the minute. And that makes this a very interesting game because we are, of course, off the back of a really, really good win at Stadium Light at the weekend. And the two men join me today to chat all about this. First up, we've got Andrew Smithson. Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. Nice to see you, Gav. And nice to be going into a game against the champions thinking we could do something here.
That's mad, isn't it? Yeah, we'll get into that. And also with us making, I think, his return since his little trip away is Johnny Hawley, and he's not dead. Hello, mate.
Hi, Gav. Yeah, not dead, just, slightly bumped and bruised. I managed to break my nose walking into a glass door in the hotel.
Oh,
so, at least Sunderland have had a slightly more successful last few days than I have.
Well, I hadn't noticed you'd broke your nose, so it can't have been that bad. And Andrew's shaking his head. So now you've pointed out, though, looking a bit like a boxer there, sat there. Might be the nose ring. You need to get rid of that now, I think.
Yeah, it was clearly that was magnetically attracted at the door, right? That's my excuse. I'm sticking to it.
We've got a massive game tonight, haven't we, Andrew? This one, I'm really looking forward to it. Obviously, when you come back to the Premier League, the games you're looking at, first and foremost, are the derbies, of course. But then after that, you're looking at Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City, Man United, and looking at when you play them. And we've had to wait a little bit to play some of the big boys. Obviously, a lot was made of that at the time when we played Chelsea, wasn't it? That was the first big test for Sunderland. And we passed that with flying colours, of course. We got the win away at Stamford Bridge. But it's just nice, isn't it, that we're going to Anfield and we could well get something from this game. And that, as you said when you were chatting just before there, it's just crazy, isn't it? It shows how far we've come.
It does. It's staggering. It's also staggering that, a lot of people referred to Chelsea as our first big test. We'd already played Man United by that point. growing up as a kid, Man United and Liverpool were the two absolute giants of English football, and
Mm.
this season that they're both a little bit off the pace. But yes, everybody was talking about December going to be really tough for Sunderland. We've got a lot of difficult fixtures, whereas we've now got to that point, and we are looking at it from a completely different angle. We're all positive, and yeah, not everybody's going to be predicting us getting maximum points, but we're all fairly confident that we're going to be giving a good account of ourselves, and it's not going to be a case of we need to just park the bus and try and get through with like damage limitation. So let's go into this game full of confidence. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah, you feeling the same, Johnny?
Yeah, it's an exciting game, isn't it? Like you're never looking at these kind of games thinking, oh well, that's going to be a boring, drab 0-0. You always look at them, and even though it doesn't really like make any sense, just because of the nature of the size of the games, you look at them and you do just expect them to be good games, I think, as well. And we've been quite lucky, really, so far this season, where all of our games against the so-called bigger teams, Chelsea and Arsenal, even the Man United game was, yeah, we got beat, but it was a good game to watch. So, first and foremost, I hope that it's a good game to watch, because obviously it's live on Sky and that as well, isn't it? So I'm excited on that front, and I also think, I echo what Andrew was saying. There's no reason why we can't go into a game like this at the stage of the development under Lebris that we're at. There's no reason we can't go into this game and think that we can get something out of it, because I think we've kind of shown now we're deep enough into the season to prove that those early results that we were picking up weren't just a fluke. Obviously, we've managed to maintain form. And I think now, and I said this a lot near the beginning of the season, but we keep just showing new versions of ourselves, new facets of our game that we're able to tick off and prove that we've been able to perform under pressure. Particularly, obviously, the game at the weekend was the biggest example of that. Going 2-0 down in the circumstances we did, to then come back to 3-2, which I think was our first ever comeback from 2 goals down in the Premier League to win. Was the stat in
188 attempts, I think was the stat, wasn't it? So we've gone 2-0 down in the Premier League that many times and not came back. So long time coming.
Which it shows you the size of the achievement, I think.
Yeah.
So all of that combined makes us think that, yeah, actually, we do now have a rounded enough team with enough experience of these different situations in the Premier League to go to Liverpool. And yeah, okay, it's not going to be an easy game. They are still the champions of England. But yeah, we can go in and we can absolutely take plenty of confidence in, plenty of belief in ourselves. And again, as we say regularly on here, I'm sure the players are just telling each other, we can win this game.
Yeah. It's been an interesting week, hasn't it, Andrew, in terms of the reaction that we've seen outside of the Sunderland bubble to that win against Bournemouth. Because it just feels to me, I don't know if you feel the same thing, but feels to me that more and more people are waking up to just how good we are. And with each passing positive result, there are more and more people sticking their head above the parapet and saying, you know what it is, Sunderland are decent. And I think this week, particularly after that game, because everybody knows how good Bournemouth are, there's been a lot of people popping their head above and saying, now we've got to start taking the Sunderland team very seriously. So these 2 games are interestingly timed. I don't know if you heard Regis Lebris in his press conference, but he was asked a question about this being a battle against other teams going for European places, and he didn't even blink. He kind of like, oh yeah, that's how I don't know whether he maybe understood the question fully, but to me it felt like he was just taking that in his stride. But it does almost feel this week, doesn't it, that the sort of the attitude around Sunderland's changing a little bit.
It is. We had a little chat there before recording about a couple of other clubs in the Premier League they're just dogged at the moment with bad news stories and managers saying things about the fans, and you're thinking, whoa, they sound in a bit of a mess. Whereas everybody who's looking at Sunderland, whether like ourselves or from a more neutral standpoint, they're just thinking, yeah, Sunderland are going about their business well. They're doing, there's a sense to everything they do. And why not? Why not go into these games and see us as being up and deservedly in that level of top half teams. I heard a couple of people on Saturday talking about the Newcastle game, and obviously that's going to take a lot of attention. But we shouldn't write these games off. I still think Liverpool and Man City are games where, I'm not going to say we're favourites or anything, but we've got a chance of doing something. And yeah,
Well, I'm
neutrals.
sorry to cut across you, Andrew, but I think if you listen to what Arne Slot said in his press conference about Sunderland, that nobody's looking at Sunderland now and thinking, well, that these are a newly promoted team and we should be taking points off them. I think pretty much everybody we face now are going, I'd rather not be playing them at the minute.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Liverpool, okay, they got a good result at the weekend, but they're not in good form. So Slot's aware. There was a lot of good coverage of us over the weekend on podcasts and on the BBC. So yeah, everybody is waking up to the fact, and it's easy at the start to just think, no, promoted team, they've won a couple of games, they've got a bit of momentum, or the luck's been on their side. But every week, we continue to turn out good performances, or if we do play badly, we then respond well. So yeah, why wouldn't neutrals start to notice that? We're there on merit up in the top half of the table. We're playing well. And that Bournemouth game particularly, I think, sends out a message, because as we've seen, it's rare for a team to come back from 2-0 down. It's rare for Sunderland to come back from 2-0 down. But we did so against a Bournemouth side, and the crowd could see it coming a mile off. There was a lot of belief amongst the players. Everything's going well at the moment, and you'd be daft to not pick up on that and give Sunderland some credit.
Yeah, what's your view on that, Jonny, in terms of it being a point that's been brought up now in managers' press conferences? Like I say, Arne Slot was specifically asked on 3 or 4 occasions questions of basically asking them to affirm how good we are and how well we're playing. And that's interesting to me that the media are going into these chats with the Liverpool manager, the manager of the Premier League champions, and going, by the way, aren't these decent? And I wonder how that kind of does affect the whole cycle leading up to a game when you're a team like Liverpool, who they're champions, so they've got lots of good players, they know how to win games, but that they're going into this game against a Sunderland team with nothing to fear and nothing to lose ultimately, and they're at a stage where they won at the weekend, but they can't afford to be dropping points at the minute, particularly that manager, because he's been under pressure up until sort of the weekend.
There's a lot of pressure on him and a lot of pressure on Liverpool, I think, in this game. Certainly, they're the team who are more in need of a result than we are. And all of this, you could almost say skewed media coverage, where it's, a lot of it is skewed in favour of, aren't Sunderland doing well, almost to help bolster that kind of narrative point of, isn't this a big worry for Liverpool? Isn't this a big banana skin? Couldn't this be a really bad result? It's almost to kind of, I think, stoke those flames of tension as the undercurrent of the game, because you're right, it's impossible to ignore what we're doing. We're doing it in one of the biggest competitions in world sport, certainly the biggest league in Europe. So it's no surprise that the eyes of the media are turning the stadium alight. But I think specifically in the context of this game, it certainly ratchets the pressure up on Liverpool. But as well, I think, you look at the interactions between particularly Virgil van Dijk and Wayne Rooney in the media recently, right? Where Rooney's had a few different comments to say about Liverpool and about Van Dijk. And then I can't remember what game it was, but, Van Dijk comes out after the game specifically to speak to Rooney on the TV. And then, they're having a little bit of a back and forth. And I just remember watching all that go on and thinking, Van Dijk's rattled here, because, the Premier League champion captain doesn't come out engaging in spats with, ex-pro pundits to the level that he did if they're not insecure about it and if they're not feeling the pressure start to get under the skin a bit. And you've got to think with obviously the new lads at Liverpool haven't been here that long, but a lot of that squad have been there a long time. they're not used to having the questions be asked of them every week. They're used to listening in the press conferences. It's, oh, you were so brilliant last week and you were so brilliant this week. And oh, aren't the opposition in so much trouble because you're going to rip them apart? I don't think they really like having it turned the other way around, which is obviously, that's the mentality that makes you an elite sports person. But I bet you're in that Liverpool dressing room, even if they're not having these conversations, I bet you they're all secretly like a bit like, oh, well, lads, we're meant to be Liverpool, eh? You know, this is meant to be Sunderland. It'll be needling them, and I think it could go one or two ways, couldn't it? It could motivate them, and you know, it could be sat here in whatever it is, 24 hours time. Not sure whenever the pod's going out, but we could be sat here all collectively, you know, going, oh, that's all kind of backfired, and we've just been 4-0'd. But I think there's certainly there'll be a little bit of edge there, I think, from Liverpool's point of view, because they'll want to flip that narrative away from plucky little Sunderland to the champions are back and make a bit of a statement.
I think you're dead right in that there'll be this narrative of Sunderland are playing well, Sunderland are going to be dangerous, to create interest in the game and make it a big story and how do Liverpool react. One of the other reasons that I think people are so pleased that Sunderland are doing well and are maybe starting to pay attention and look at us a little bit closer, like Gav said earlier. Everybody is panicking, aren't they, about all of these promoted teams getting relegated every season. Everybody's thinking we might have a problem here in the Premier League. If nobody can come up and make a decent stab of it, it's going to become a closed shop. So people must be over the moon that Sunderland have shown there's a way to come into the Premier League and stake a claim and give yourselves a good chance of stopping up and bring a bit of like a breath of fresh air rather than just stinking the place out in 3 teams every season, coming up, taking the money, getting turned over every week and then being like relegated with pathetic points totals. This is good for everybody that somebody's coming up and actually got a bit about themselves, really.
Yeah, you listen to the chatter around us and the media attention we've been getting and stuff, and it's been a while since there was a negative story written about Sunderland, where in contrast, you know, Arne Slot in his press conference, he was actually asked by a journalist about this study this week that came out that shows that Arne Slot has actually been on the receiving end of the most abuse of any other manager online this season. And he was actually asked about that. It's just really interesting when you watch one manager's press conference and the other, and you're listening to Slot take questions on these things. The manager of the Premier League champions, by the way. And then you flip to Regis Labrise, and it's like he's on holiday and he's got a glass of wine and a bit of cheese there, and he's just sat with his feet on the desk and enjoying the conversation with the assembled press pack. But I don't know if either of you have managed to catch his press conference this week. Go on, Andrew. You were going to say something there.
It was going to be below the belt, but if Labrise was on holiday, I bet he wouldn't break his nose walking into a glass door or anything like that.
Yeah, I think he looks where he's going. He strikes me as that sort of bloke.
Yeah.
Yeah, did either of you catch his presser this week or not? I've got shaking heads here.
In all honesty, it's kind of caught me out. In the Championship, where we're used to this midweek game and then a Saturday game, my whole structure going into this match does seem a little bit unusual, and it's a bit like, oh God, there's a game and there was a press conference earlier today. I've not had a chance to catch up. I think though, from the odd bits I picked up, Labrise again seems to be in a good mood. He's happy with the way that the squad's moving forward at the moment.
Yeah, he's really coming out with more of the same, I would say. I mean, who was it the other week on the pod who said he can almost be a little bit boring to interview sometimes, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because they're chasing the kind of the snippets and the headlines and the clickbait that he might be able to give them, and he gives nothing away. Like, he gives absolutely nothing away. But I almost find that more interesting than if he did give stuff away. It's got to the point now where I watch these press conferences and I'm like, I'm just looking forward to seeing how he bats the questions away that he gets asked. But to be fair, there's not much for them really to bat away, is there, at the minute? It's all just people telling them how great his team is and how well they're doing. And actually, he's very good at just grounding people. You know, people get a bit carried away. They'll say something that maybe might be getting a bit excited about this player, that player, or this result, or that result. And he always brings it back to the same thing. He's always on a very level playing field, Reggie Slibbery's. And I've said this before, Andrew, but I think that's such a strength of his, that when he talks to the media or he talks to the TV cameras, or, you know, and I imagine it's exactly the same when he's around the training ground talking to the players, that he is just so unmovable. He's just a real steady character, isn't he?
He is, and the Bournemouth game's a great example. 2-0 down, heads could have very easily dropped. People could have started making more mistakes, and it spreads through the team and it spreads to the crowd. Everybody was calm. Everybody knew what they needed to do. There was no flap.
Well, look at the manager on the other side of the pitch. He was jumping all over like an idiot, and his team were rattled, and so was he. Yeah. It does make a difference. I mean, I felt the same the other week when we played Arsenal. Arteta was doing the same.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, I think about my own work environment. I love. He's going to think I'm trying to brown nose, but I love the fact that if something goes wrong at the moment, my line manager, you know, you can talk to him and he'll be like, right, well, what needs to happen next? There's no flying off the handle. There's nothing like that. That's the type of environment the players are going to thrive in. And I used to always think that the ideal Sunderland manager had to be somebody like McCarthy or Reid, who was old school and in press conferences behaved quite, you know, chest puffed out, quite brash. I'm starting to think that Lebris is the perfect type of character for what we need as a club, because there's so much noise around Sunderland, and we've got a really big supporter base, which is a really good thing. But you have to manage that right. And he keeps everything very level-headed. He's very calm. He's good at keeping the players grounded, and in turn keeps us grounded. And that is perhaps what we need. This bizarre, mad club where there's always something happening. He just seems to take it all in his stride. We'll deal with whatever problems. We've got plans in place for every scenario. It's just working a treat at the moment. It's fantastic to have so much faith in the coaching team.
It is indeed. And we will head off for a break. So there's a couple of others coming up, and then we'll see you back after that.
Here's my 30-second story with Guinness. As soon as my sister and I get home for the holidays, we don't even unpack. We head straight to our pub. The bartender already knows our order, Guinness and fries. We laugh all night, catch up with old friends, and walk home with faces sore from smiling. It's one of my favorite nights of the year. That was my 30-second story with Guinness.
Guinness Draft Stout. Please enjoy responsibly. Imported by Diageo Beer Company, USA, New York, New York.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. You're ready to move your business forward, but first, you need to find the right team. Start your search with Indeed-sponsored jobs. It can help you reach qualified candidates fast, ensuring your listing is the first one they see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. See the results for yourself. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Thursday Night Football is on, and it's only on Prime Video.
Wide open, touchdown!
This week, the Dallas Cowboys and Detroit Lions face off in a high-octane clash.
Look at this, it's on the money.
Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern with football's best party. TNF Tonight, presented by Verizon. Not a Prime member? Not a problem. Simply sign up for a 30-day free trial. It's the Cowboys and Lions, Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on Prime Video. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
Welcome back to Howie the podcast, sponsored by LiveScoreBet, and we're going to chat a little bit about Liverpool now, Johnny, because, as I mentioned before, they're not in the best of places currently. Yes, they won at the weekend, but last week, two big defeats at Anfield, one in the Premier League, one in the Champions League. Went 3-0 down to Nottingham Forest in the Prem, and then 4-1 against PSV Eindhoven in the Champions League. And their fans are going to be expecting a strong return, aren't they? For regardless of who they're playing, they could be playing Everton, they could be playing Sunderland, they could be playing Manchester City. The fans who are turning up at the ground are going to be expecting a reaction from Liverpool, and I think we've got to be guarded against that and how quickly they start.
Well, there's certainly going to be a demand for a reaction, isn't there? That the crowd is going to be up for it, I imagine. I'm sure it'll be high energy, but I think they'll be potentially turnable, if you know what I mean. I think it's the kind of game where
if it's a 20-25 minute spell at the start where it's not going their way,
yeah, if we start growing into the game, for once, I think we're on that side of that divide where we used to sometimes get it levelled at us at the stadium. I like where it would be, if you keep Sunderland quiet for 15-20 minutes, they'll get on the backs. We should be the ones trying to go and inflict that on Liverpool, I think, this time out. The other thing, though, I think is in a preparation sense, I think there's almost a little bit more danger about the way that they could set up because of the fact that they are having to almost scrabble around for solutions a little bit. So, you think about the game against West Ham that they just played. They made changes to their team for that game. They had Joe Gomez coming in. They dropped Mo Salah. I was listening to Jamie Carragher talk about it on that fan debate thing, and he was, he kind of summed it up as, it's not a progressive solution. It's not what they're going to try and do going forwards. It's a reaction to try and get points in the here and now. So rather than going in against a settled Liverpool team where we kind of know what we're going to expect and who's going to play where, which is particularly under Klopp, but even last season with Liverpool, you could generally name 9 or 10 of their 11 most weeks without much difficulty. It's going to be a very different situation this time. There's every chance they could spring a surprise, and I don't think there's too many managers in the division I would trust more to deal with that than Regis Lebris, but it's something that adds a little extra layer of complexity to his task, I think, in trying to win that pre-match tactical battle that you almost have between the two managers, where you're naming your team and setting your stall out. So we've got to be wary because they could surprise us, and I think it'll be the kind of game where both managers, I imagine, are very engaged on the touchlines in the first 10-15 minutes, making sure that everybody's carrying the game plans out. I think it's going to be certainly it's going to be one where there's a heavy emphasis on how the team's set up, where sometimes you go into a game and it's just about blood and thunder and winning challenges and stuff. I think this is a game where we need to not fall into the trap we did against Manchester United, basically, where we got the setup all wrong and then we were just chasing shadows for 20 minutes. We can't afford that. If we start the game solidly, then we're on a much better footing to be able to, take the game to them and then hopefully start turning the crowd and putting the pressure on.
Yeah, and in the build-up, Andrew, to the game at the weekend, we were talking a lot on this pod over the week about coming away from the 5 at the back and needing to maybe go back to a 4. I think Regis Lebris called it a 4-4-2 in his post-match, which made my ears prick up because I hadn't seen it as a 4-4-2, but obviously he's the man who sets the team up, and he clearly did. But I don't know about you, I'd be really shocked if we do the same at Anfield. I don't think it's the game or the situation to be going 4-4-2 against the best team in the land last season. Are you expecting, like me, for us to go back to a back 5, a more familiar kind of system against one of the bigger boys? Given, particularly as well, by the way, you look at the Chelsea and Arsenal games, we picked up points in both them games playing with a back 5.
Well, first of all, I'm glad it wasn't just me who was scratching my head at that 4-4-2 quote, because I was thinking, I was at that game. I paid really good attention to it. It did not seem like a 4-4-2 to me. I've had to think about this. I actually think against Liverpool, I don't know why, I think we might stick with a 4 at the back. I can't even justify it. I just think he might be looking at this and thinking, do you know what? We're going to have a bloody good go at Liverpool and see what we can do.
Do you think we might be wearing some of the scars from Man U away where we did that?
Possibly.
That was a while ago, wasn't it? But
yeah,
that's a similar situation.
Yeah. If there was a gun to my head, I probably would imagine he goes to a 5. because it has worked against the teams higher up the table, the better teams. I don't know. I really fancy us to pull something off here.
Do you know what it is, actually, Andrew? You know what it is? It wouldn't surprise you because Regis Labrise is capable of that. He'll be thinking, there might be a part of him thinking, well, they're going to be looking at how we played it against Chelsea and Arsenal and thinking, well, that's exactly how we're going to set up. So we'll do something to throw them off.
Possibly. And also as well, if say he does go 4 at the back, we're not known for being like a wide open team defensively. No. It wouldn't be naming 4 at the back would be suicide. You could still be fairly comfortable and confident of that back 4 doing a good job and being able to hold out a strong attacking team. I don't know. I've just got this sense. Maybe I'm still buzzing off the Bournemouth win, but hey, I'm an optimist.
I think you can make an argument for it, though, at least. It's not like you're suggesting that Labrise is going to rock up and just, rip up the tactics book and, go with something completely left field. Because as well, you look at Liverpool, even in the bad run of form that they've been on, their midfield, and particularly that midfield 3, when they have got Gravenberch and Szoboszlai and, Wirtz or McAllister in there, arguments about Wirtz's performance to one side, that is their strongest part of the pit. That they've had struggles with the strikers, they've had struggles out wide with Salah, the defence has been chopped and changed. The midfield's been the most consistent and the best part of their team. So from our point of view, I think you could easily see Reggie going, well, they're having problems everywhere else on the pitch. Why don't we match them up in midfield? Go man for man and play 3 versus 3. And then that way we can hopefully try and nullify what is their best asset at the minute, and then try and win our individual battles elsewhere on the pitch. Because like you say, it's not like naming 4 at the back. You're naming Patrick Van Aanholt at left back and DeAndre Yedlin at right back. You know what I mean? It's not like it's a suicide back 4 where you're going to have both fullbacks high and wide on touching the wingers' boots and that. It's still going to be a solid base. So yeah, I don't think it's unreasonable.
Thank you, by the way, gents, for making us feel a bit better, because I am panicking now. I've said it out loud. But look at that. For example, that Fulham Man City game. Loads of goals in that game. We are in a season where even the teams at the top are a little bit vulnerable. So we've scored twice against Arsenal. I mean, Arsenal prior to what was that daft stat? They hadn't even had a shot on target against them for weeks beforehand.
Yeah.
So hey, it just might be something, that like you have said, gents, he does look at every option and he does give it some thought and balance everything out and work out what's going to be the best way for each game. He might just look at this one and think, we don't need to be too rigid and having too many men at the back. We can maybe stretch them in other parts of the field and see what that does for us.
Yeah, when I spoke to Craig from the Anfield Wrap, he gave some really logical reasoning behind why they might change their team. And I think, given that was recorded before Arne Slot's press conference, it was interesting to me to then hear him kind of back some of that up. When he was talking about Wirtz and Alexander Isak in particular, saying that it's probably a big stretch to ask them to play 3 games in a week, which makes you think, he's probably going to drop them for this game. And to be fair, they've got the options there. I mean, you drop Isak and you bring in Ekitike, that's not a bad swap, is it? And of course, when we're talking about Joe Gomez at right back, who hasn't played a lot of football, he's on about bringing in Curtis Jones, who's an England international. All right, he's not a right back for England, but still has played for England. So, it's not like we're playing the dog and duck here. They've got some good players to bring in. It's only Mo Salah, after all, that they'll be bringing in for Florian Wirtz. It's only Mo Salah they're bringing in for their £100-odd million attack midfield player that signed in the summer. I mean, imagine that luxury, man. It must be mad, mustn't it? But still, we're talking about them rotating the team, and it's not necessarily because they've got loads of strong options available who are in form and fit. It's actually because some of those important players aren't fit and aren't in form. I mean, Mo Salah, they'll never admit it publicly, but hasn't been playing well recently. That will have played a part in the thinking behind why he was dropped at the weekend. I've got people at work who are Liverpool fans, and I taught them about this sort of stuff, and they've said all season that Salah's just not the same player this season. So, it's not necessarily a massive positive to be bringing him in at the minute because he's not playing very well. And it might act like a rocket up his arse that he's been dropped and he might want to prove the manager wrong. But these aren't things that we can concern ourselves with. And to be honest, Regis Lebris basically said this in the press conference. He does not really care about what's going on with the other team. He only really cares about his own team. And that's maybe why I'm looking at this and thinking we might spring a couple of surprises, but it won't necessarily be in the shape. I think the shape might be quite predictable. And Slot actually said in his press conference that we've basically got two ways of playing and we can interchange between them in games. He talked about how we are really good at pressing high, but he also said how we're one of the best when it comes to sticking 11 men behind the ball and defending for every single ball. And I would agree with that. So we're still unpredictable, even if we do go to a back five, because you're not quite sure which way we're going to set up. And I think the big decisions for me aren't necessarily in the shape, it's in who starts. I keep saying this every week, but I do think we have now arrived at the point where Brian Brobbey has to start. I think when we're talking about players having to play 3 games in a week, I think given he scored at the weekend, this is the right time to bring him in. I don't know what you think, Johnny, but would you be starting Brobbey tonight?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's the time's come, hasn't it? He's done his couple of cameos off the bench, getting some goals, some important goals as well. He obviously had the contribution against Chelsea where he, held the ball up and laid it off for Talby's winner. So he's proven his fitness by playing minutes and getting on the pitch and contributing. And I'm sure he's also done that behind closed doors in the academy as well. He's, like I say, contributed in terms of actual goals and assists when he has come on. So he's proven his worth that way. And he just looks a real, battering ram up front, doesn't he? I mean, obviously he's got some quality as well. And I'm not just trying to say he's all strength or anything, but he possesses a different dynamic, to borrow one of Reggie's favourite words, than any of our other forward options. We're quite, I was going to say lucky, but really we've been well put together as a squad where we've got multiple different options in terms of types of player for each position. And Brobbey is something that I think in a game like this away at Anfield and in other games similar to this through the season, he'll be a massive, massive asset for us up front because being able to relieve the pressure by, it doesn't even have to be getting us up the pitch for an actual counter-attack. It can be as simple as when the ball goes long, that extra fight for the ball with the defender, the extra 5-10 seconds it takes for somebody to get the ball down and under control. These are things that we can use to, as a bit of a pressure release valve when things are getting a bit, hectic at the back. Because even if we were to come away with a win, I'm sure there'll be periods in the game where we're under pressure and Liverpool are throwing men forward. So to have somebody like Brobbey who can get you out and help just, get an extra breather into your defenders and stuff, that can be invaluable in these kind of games. And then on top of that, like I say, he's already proven that he's got a little bit of an eye for goal as well. And he's got a good instinct, it seems, for sort of knowing where to be in the box, because both of his goals, yes, okay, the Arsenal one's quite acrobatic and the Bournemouth one's off a corner, but he sniffs out where to be quite well in both goals. He's a little bit Johnny on the spot almost.
And even in the ones he hasn't scored, if you think he's had a couple of half chances where he's been sort of to the keeper's near post and not got like the shot off probably as well as he would have wanted, but still positioning's been really good. And I'm sure someone said the other day he's only played like 154 minutes for us. Something like that.
But he's just so impactful when he is on the pitch that it feels like he's played more, doesn't it? Yeah, and I think you're right. His position has got. He makes good runs in behind as well. There was one against Bournemouth, where I can't remember who it was, but somebody played him through basically, and he spins in behind and then just doesn't quite. I think he tries to maybe square it across the 6-yard line and just sort of skews it a bit at the end. But those are the kind of things that he can offer you that I don't think Isidore or Mayenda can at this point in time. So yeah, I'd be looking at bringing Brobbey in. And I think on top of that, like you say, it's 3 games in a week. There's going to have to be changes made at some point anyway. So you may as well capitalise on somebody who's shown that they're in form and they're raring to go, rather than having to rotate for the sake of it. Bring the lad in who looks like he's ready.
Yeah, what would you do otherwise, Andrew, in terms of rotation? I'm going to presume we're going to do what everyone else seems to be doing this midweek and maybe making at least 2 or 3 changes. Let's just say we do go to a back 5. Is it a case of Hume comes in or Gertruda? Like, what do you see happening?
It's really tricky because, yeah, everybody seems to be mixing their team up and getting fresh legs into their starting 11. I sometimes feel uneasy doing that because I think you're introducing confusion. Our team is so well drilled at the moment, and to borrow another word from Lebris, all the players are showing a connection between each other. So I don't like having to make a number of changes. That said, Hume and Gertruda are they're still both match sharp. They had a part to play in the win on Saturday. I don't think we're as desperate to make changes because Lebris has started making regular substitutions. So Chore, for example, he's started a lot of games recently, but I don't think he's played the full 90 at all. I can't think of any games where he's played the full 90. He comes off a lot after maybe 60, 70 minutes.
Yeah.
So for a lot of these players, they've not been ran into the ground anyway. Obviously, somebody like Xhaka or Siddiqui, the type of game they play, they're going to start getting tired legs soon. And there's this whole question about whether they're going to get suspended soon. I think it would be a risk to change them against Liverpool. On the tired legs and what have you, I spotted something on Saturday. Ballard was up front for a corner or a set piece with about 5 or 6 minutes to go. And then he suddenly needs to get back in defence and he absolutely sprinted back. And at the same time he did that, Siddiqui sprinted forward to start closing the ball down. It was all very organised. It was all part of the plans and part of the tactics. But there are players who are working at a really high intensity at the moment. I don't know. Maybe a bit of a risk bringing a couple of players in against Liverpool who don't have many minutes in their legs and are perhaps a bit cold. I think if we make changes, I think it happens against Man City rather than Liverpool, to be honest.
Yeah, I'll give you my predicted team, Johnny,
Yeah.
and you can pick holes in it if you want. You both can pick holes in it. I've went with Roofs, Hume, Mukiele, Ballard, Alderete, Ronaldo as the back 5, Xhaka and Siddiqui, Lafay, Traore, Brobbey. I've went with a more familiar looking shape, but just a couple of little tweaks, being Hume coming in and Brobbey coming in, Johnny. I don't know what do you think? What do you think he might go with? That's me thinking with me Regis Lebris hat on and thinking that's what he'll probably do. But what do you reckon?
I agree with you. If I had me Lebris hat on, I think that's the team I'd pick. The only, obviously, the point of contention would be if it's going to be a back 4 instead of a back 5, then who would drop out? Probably Hume. I think it's fair to say we saw that, didn't we, at the weekend? He was the man to make way to, accommodate the positional change. And I think it's fair enough. It's not like he's been bad this season, Hume. He's been excellent at times, but he was starting to look a little bit like he was just getting that little half a yard off the pace a little bit at times, particularly late on against Fulham. So I think, he's my question mark, I think, in terms of who would actually get in the team, because if it was going to change, I think he drops out. And then then it's a toss-up between who you bring in, isn't it? Between a Talby or, I mean, it could be anybody that you want to fill that left-hand side position. You could bring in a midfield. You could bring in Getrauda and play Lafay on the left-hand side. And I think if he was going to go with a 4, and also probably what I would do is I would move Lafay to the left and bring Getrauda into midfield and then obviously leave Hume on the bench and then have McKaylee right back and the rest of the back 4 as it was at the weekend. Just because with it being an away game at Liverpool, I think if you're going to go with the slightly more attacking formation, I think you do need to accommodate for that a little bit with the personnel. So, I don't think we'd be seeing a Dingra lineup on the left wing like we did at Old Trafford if we were going to go that way.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to see what he's going to do. I mean, we are quite unpredictable in terms of what we're going with in team selections and things. And honestly, wouldn't surprise if he throws a couple of curveballs in there. But I'm just really hoping we do see Brobbey from the start. I'm not expecting him to play 90 minutes. I think if you can get a good 65 out of them and then bring on Isidora Mayenda to help stretch the Liverpool defence a little bit, I think that would be pretty good. But I just think he's got the physicality and the know-how that you're probably going to need against somebody like Van Dijk in particular, because they're very physical central defensive pairing what Liverpool have got. And Isidore, he runs his socks off, but we just don't play to his strengths sometimes. And I think, he's not really going to trouble those two if all we're doing is punting it long to him. I think if you're going to punt it long, play somebody who can hold it up, Andrew.
Definitely. And I agree with what Johnny said earlier about having an outlet like that who can turn even a bad ball into a good ball by chasing it or running into the channels. It gives you that chance to reset. I just think we've been speaking there about how Liverpool are going to be nervous, and if you don't let them have an easy route into the game in the first 20 minutes, the players and the fans are going to get nervous. Well, if I'm a Liverpool defender at the moment, what's the last thing I want? The last thing I want is to be against a striker who is buzzing because he's scored a couple of important goals, everything's going well. So he's the exact opposite of the Liverpool players at the moment. He's confident and can't wait for the next game. And yeah, having him running at you or clattering you and knocking you down to the deck, Liverpool aren't used to that. They don't know how to handle it. I think I'd agree with yourselves, gents. This is set up for Brobbey to have a good game from the start.
And you talk about the Liverpool defenders not wanting to deal with him, and you're right, he'd be the last one they want to see lining up against them, I think, tonight, whenever the game is. But especially somebody like Ibrahima Konate, who he's having a torrid time of it this season. If he's playing, the pressure he's under. I mean, going from the summer where there was chat about him going on a free to Real Madrid next summer to then there was reports last week that Real Madrid have said they don't want him anymore and that they're looking elsewhere. That's how much of a turnaround he's had in a few short months. And he was never the most physically dominant anyway. He's a brilliant covering defender, and he reads the game exceptionally well, and he's got a bit of pace about him and everything. But he's not a Van Dijk who's going to go in and bully people 1v1. So if I am Brobbey and I'm starting against Liverpool, I'm just saying to myself, all game, Konate, I am sticking onto you like super glue, son. You're not getting anywhere more than 2 yards away from me because I'm having you.
Well, let's hope Regis Labrise, if he's undecided, sticks this podcast on this morning and goes, what is, the lads are right. Let's do it. Let's go with Brian Brobbey up front. However, then let's get some predictions in before we head off. Andrew, I'll come to you first, mate. What you're saying? I know we've been very positive today, and look, we've got every right to be. We've done some brilliant things this season. I mean, it doesn't get much better than coming from 2-0 down to beat Bournemouth. But, we went away to Chelsea and got 3 points. We took a point off Arsenal. There's a reason why we're optimistic, right? But we can't forget who we're playing. They are a very good team. It doesn't matter how poor they've been at times this season. They're still in the conversation. They know how important this game is too. They've got to turn the home form around after a bad week last week. So, what you saying, mate? What do you reckon?
I agree. Liverpool are world class. The home record is phenomenal. I see us getting a point. I see it being 1-1. I think we will take the lead. I think we will get the crowd on their backs. We'll take the lead. And I think just unfortunately, Sunderland will play really well, but because of the sheer quality Liverpool still have, they'll pull themselves out of trouble with a piece of individual magic, like a moment of brilliance. I think other than that, though, Sunderland are gonna graft hard and make it really tough for them.
Yeah, that wouldn't be the end of the world, but yeah. What do you reckon, Johnny? Go on.
I've got a funny feeling we win the game, you know.
Yeah, it's more like it, Johnny, lad.
I don't know whether it's just because I've been on my holidays and that, so I'm coming back feeling a bit happier or something. But yeah, no, it just feels like the kind of game that does suit the way that we want to play. I think Lebris will be looking at this and thinking, actually, this is a really big opportunity to go and get 3 points. To balance that slightly, I think we'll probably then go and get absolutely battered off Man City, you know, just to keep us sort of on a reasonably even keel. But yeah, no, I think the way that all the context that's swirling around this game with Liverpool and their struggles and our, you know, surprise form and all the rest of it, it does just have that feeling of a game where we can turn up and for once we can be the spoilers, the party poopers almost, who turn up and go, you know, Liverpool think they're getting back on track and they're going to get a good result. No. Sunderland's in town, lads. We'll show you what's going on. I think it'll be tight though, because even though I am quite, you know, quietly confident, not that quiet if I'm announcing it on the pre-match podcast, but it's not going to be an easy game. You know, if we're going to win, it's going to be by a goal. You know, it's going to be tight. I don't think we're going to be going there and sticking 3 past them.
Well, on the website today in the match preview, which of course I'm going to plug because I wrote it because our Chris is poorly. So I've taken over match preview duties on the website and the pod this week. I have gone with a 1-0 Sunderland win. And I've been very specific. I've said Omar Alderete will score a header from a Granit Xhaka corner. So that's my big prediction.
Well, I forgot to say a score, so I'll say 2-1, by the way. But I instead of Xhaka assist, now I've got a Xhaka 30-yard raker on my bingo card. Oh,
he's 2-1.
And if we keep saying that every game, eventually it'll happen and we'll be right and we'll have called it.
It did happen with Bertrand Traore. I said he's going to score eventually. It's the law of averages, you know. Scored at every team he's ever played for. That's why he keeps starting. And then it eventually happened. And I missed it. I was having a pint at half time. So never mind.
It's not the best goal you've missed going for a piss at half time, though, is it, Gav? So
do you have to remind us? Never mind. Yeah, we'll bring that one up again. Yeah, Mr. Defoe's volley against the Mag, one of it. Yeah, so I went with 1-0 Alderete. I mean, none of us have said Liverpool win, which is
terrifying.
We're playing Liverpool at Anfield, the Premier League champions, and none of us think we're going to get beat.
Well, yeah, Liverpool against Sunderland in December. It's a top 4 team against a mid-table team, just as everybody predicted.
Honestly, though, and I said again, I said this in my preview, but it's December and we're above Liverpool going into a game against them. I can't get my head around it, honestly. And look, if we don't win, if we do get beat, none of us are going to be sat here going, well, we didn't really see that coming. We're playing such a good team. But I think we're just also confident at the minute that I can't let this feeling go. I can't. You know, we are genuinely capable of getting a result there. It's not just us being deluded and fanciful and thinking, you know, red and white tinted specs and all the other cliches you can come out with. It's not that. We are genuinely capable of getting something. Liverpool have got to have a bad night, but we've got to have another good night like we've had plenty of times this season to get that result. But nobody would be surprised tomorrow either if we win. I genuinely don't. No, I'm saying nobody would be surprised if Liverpool win. If tomorrow morning all the newspapers are talking about a Sunderland victory at Anfield, I don't think anybody will be shocked. I think that's the buzz that's been around us now all season. I think people are starting to really believe that we're the real deal. And a good result tonight would cement that, I think. And then you go into bloody Man City away at the weekend, and how you're feeling about that. It's just a really good time to be a fan, isn't it? I'm buzzing off this. I used to do this podcast when we were playing shite like Accrington and Rochdale and Walsall and Tranmere and Burton Albion and getting beat off Burton Albion. And you know what I mean? I've been in the trenches, so I'm going to enjoy doing match previews where I'm talking about going to Anfield and beating Liverpool. I'm going to milk it, because even if we don't do it, I've earned that right. Right? So, is anybody listening thinking, you're deluded? Up your arse. Not bothered.
On Tuesday night, this really hammered home to me. League One, Wigan Athletic played Burton Albion, and that just sent like a shiver down my spine. Where Sunderland are now is completely different. So, Gav, I know exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah,
did Liverpool, by the way, play on Sunday instead of Saturday at the weekend?
Yes.
So there you go. There's another little thing that might be in our favour. We might be a little bit fresher. Hey, we've convinced ourselves, haven't we, lads?
Well, it's far from the coping strategy it used to be back in the day. Like, you sat in the car on the way to the match against, like, Man United or whatever, thinking, well, you never know. I mean, we could do something against them, maybe. And deep down in your heart of hearts, it's going to be 4-0. See you later. It's not that anymore, is it? And it's not League One when sometimes we were going into games against Wigan or Portsmouth or whoever thinking, I don't see where a goal's coming from today, lads, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, let's see what's happening today then. Obviously, before the game, if you are running out of things to listen to, if we haven't already kept your ears filled enough this week, head to rotareport.sbnation.com. There's all the match preview stuff over there. Of course, as I said, I wrote the preview for the website, so make sure you read that. We are on Twitter as well, pretty active over there, so all the updates around the game will be there. And of course, after the game, you've got Andy's player ratings on the website, and then there will be a reaction pod, which I think you're doing, Andrew. Am I right? Or have I just
yes.
On there?
No, that's the plan. That's the plan. With any luck, Chris will be out of his sick bed. He'll be brought back to fitness after Sunderland beating Liverpool, and he'll be like dancing around his bedroom, and you never know, he might join us, but that's the plan anyway.
Yeah, so you'll be on, at least with Martin, after the game. I'm not around because I'm going to watch it at the Stadium of Light for the first time. I'm going to Quinn's Bar to watch it for the beam back. It's not really a beam back, is it? Remember them back in the day? It's not quite a beam back, but I'm calling it that anyways. But I will be back for the pod the very next day. I'm up very, very, very early in the morning to record with James Copley from the Sunderland Echo. So I will be back after the game at some point, but you'll have to wait a little bit to listen to what I think, if you're asked at all, which I know most of you aren't. Just to say thank you very much, gents. Been a pleasure.
Pleasure was all ours.
Yes, cheers.
Speaking on your behalf there, Andrew. And thank you to the listeners. Like I say, we do appreciate it. Get subscribed to How We Are the Podcast, and make sure you check out the website before and after the game. And we'll see you later.
Podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Sports Social Podcast Network, the biggest voices in sport. Let's take a look at some of the lineup. For the love of rugby.
What were you more nervous for? First cap or opening, strictly?
Honestly, opening, strictly.
Not the top 20.
The decision to sack Wilder and replace him with anyone was a massive risk that the ownership took.
Under the cosh.
I got a text and he was like, you need to get me in because I bullied your centre-halves and made them look like kids.
All on Europe's biggest sport podcast network. Find your next favourite sport podcast. Search Sports Social Podcast Network and listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Verified comparison at content.sport-social.co.uk/comparison.